Howdy everybody. This is my treasure book series, the books that I love and adore, and this one is in the pantheon of my all-time favorite books, written by certainly one of my all-time favorite chefs, a person I regard as a mentor to me, who came along before I did on the scene of American cuisine, and that's Chef Jeremiah Tower. The book is Jeremiah Tower's New American Classics, and it is classic. This book really was a guidepost for me in where I wanted to go with cooking. Before this time, people were cooking European food predominantly. Jeremiah classically trained in many aesthetics, but not cuisine, more architecture and design. But here he is, sitting at Stars, the fabulous San Francisco restaurant that he went to after he started Chez Panisse, where he was the chef. This restaurant was unbelievable too. But let's get into this. This book was published in 1986. I was at Key West at Louis' Backyard when this book came rolling out, and I was really just trying to shift my gears and figure out what I was doing, because I was cooking a lot of European food up until this point. When Jeremiah's book came out with all this beautiful photography and the forthright nature of it, I was just wowed by it. It was instructional. The preface, I have to read this part to you. I started my cooking career in 1972 as a chef of Chez Panisse restaurant in Berkeley, California. After 2 years, I had landed on my feet, and looking around for ways to challenge the restaurant, I started a series of special monthly dinners, each one featuring a menu from a region of France. When after a year, most of the regions had been used up, I turned to Morocco, and finally to Corsica, with great difficulty in finding anything Corsican that anyone wanted to eat. Jeremiah's always funny, as well as being erudite. In those days, Chez Panisse was a French restaurant, if with the stirrings of the as yet unborn California movement. So it was not unusual for me to be reading French or a cookbook like The Epicurean by Charles Ranhofer, which contains recipe he used at Delmonico's in New York from 1862 to 1894. There I saw the title of a soup, Crème de Mois Vert à la Mendocino, cream of green corn à la Mendocino. What struck me about this recipe was that it took its name from a town right up the coast from me in San Francisco. What I wondered were chefs in New York doing with food from this area of the world. And why, Jeremiah is saying to himself, why am I scratching around Corsica when I have it bountifully all around me here in California? So he has this epiphany, this moment where he realizes that as opposed to cooking all this European style things, he should be cooking from his own backyard. He writes, "It was American food using French cooking principles. I could not contain my exhilaration over what I beheld as the enormous doors of habit swung open onto a whole new vista, and I began to compose an American regional dinner. California, not Corsica." Ladies and gentlemen, that was what I needed to read and realize through the pages of this book. Beautiful photographs. And I looked it up. You can actually buy this book online for like $7. Jeremiah, a brilliant culinary mind, and probably one of the most incredible menu writers in our time. You just have to go back to the Chez Panisse menu cookbook, which Alice wrote, and look at the menus at the back of the book there. You'll see time and time again what they were doing. But by this point in time, he'd moved on from Chez Panisse, and he was at Stars, and he was doing American food with California style. As was my custom back in this time, I took a piece of paper, a legal type piece of paper, and I began to write down the names of the dishes that inspired me. The page numbers are right here. And then to your right, this column here, it's excerpts or snippets of what I came to call my dream sheets. And this was kind of a culinary diary that I was keeping at the time, and I still keep it. And this was just me making notes or riffing on things that I wanted to try and do, but not in California, in Key West, and eventually up in Miami as well. Great praise for Jeremiah here from Craig Claiborne, Paula Wolfert, the great Paula Wolfert, the great Jacques Pepin, and James Vilas, who should be more well known in our society than he is. Look him up too. A very fascinating gentleman. Jeremiah came to cook in New York at a dinner that I did for the Star Chef's 10th anniversary. And I had never met him up until that point, and I will never forget the entrance he made. He was wearing a coat that Puff Daddy would have been proud of, or would be proud of, and he had 2 Pekingese on long rhinestone-studded leashes, say that 5 times fast, out ahead of him, and he strode, not just walked, but he strode, and he strode over to my table where I was prepping with 2 or 3 of our folks, and he picked up these parts of palm that I had brought in, and he just was like, "Oh my God, Norman, where did you get these marvelous things?" Now, the fact that he said my name at all just kind of left me dumbstruck at the time. Subsequently, though, we got to know each other, and even though he sort of disappeared for a period of time, he did come back out, and when I saw him online and posting, I got brave. It was the 10th anniversary of Norman's at this point in time in Orlando, and I sent an email to him and asked, "Jeremiah, would you consider joining Charlie Trotter, Emeril Lagasse, Dean Fearing, and myself to cook one course and an amuse for the anniversary dinner we're going to be having?" And he said yes. That just made my year. And then I brought this book along with me to the prep day up in Orlando, and he signed it for me. And I don't know if I could read it upside down. Let's see. You can get at it, camera lady. I'm going to switch it so I get it exactly correct. You can take a screenshot, folks, if you like. Look at that signature. It says, "For Norman, mentor, friend, light to the good life, Jeremiah Tower." Yes, treasure book. I urge you to go out and get your own copy, and maybe one day, if you're lucky, Chef Jeremiah Tower will sign it for you like he did for me. You'll be inspired by this book, I promise you. I'll talk to you all soon with another book.